I saved an Apache woman and she wouldn't let me leave. The desert didn't wake up softly before the sun showed its face. The land was already alive, with wind pulling across the sand. Distant hills stood still, the quiet deep enough to feel heavy on the skin. Somewhere on the edge of that huge empty space stood a tiny old cabin, forgotten by maps and people. Inside it, a man named Arthur got ready for another day. There was nothing special about his morning. Boots pulled on without thinking, a fire started easily. Coffee cooked until it tasted harsh. Life had long ago stopped offering anything new, and he had stopped asking for it. He worked as a guide through dangerous land, not because he liked it, but because it kept him moving. And movement, he had learned, was the only thing that stopped sad memories from catching up. By the time the sun climbed higher, he was already riding. The supply group behind him was small, nervous, city men who pretended not to be scared of the open desert. He didn't talk much. His job was to get them through alive, nothing more. The valley ahead became narrow quickly. Tall cliffs pressed in from both sides. Shadows cut the path into pieces. He didn't like this part of the road. Never had. The air changed. No wind, no sound. He slowed his horse. That was when the first shot echoed. The desert burst into fighting. Gunfire cracked against stone. Horses screamed. Men shouted names that no one answered. Dust filled the air so thick it burned the lungs. He acted fast, shooting, moving. Years of experience guided his body faster than thought. And then, just as quickly, it was over. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before. Bodies lay spread across the sand, still and twisted. The attackers were gone, vanishing into the land as if they had never been there. He got off his horse carefully, looking at the cliffs. Only when he was sure the danger was gone did he start checking for people left alive. Most were already dead. Then he saw her. She lay a few yards away, half covered by sand kicked up during the fight. Dark hair covered her face. Her chest moved slow, weak, but she was breathing. Blood marked her temple, drying under the rising sun. She wasn't part of the group. Her clothes were old and torn, clearly not from the caravan. She looked like someone who belonged to the land, rather than just passing through it. An Apache girl, he thought. Helping her meant stepping into something difficult, something dangerous. Walking away would be easier, safer. But as he knelt beside her, her fingers shook, trying to hold on to something. She refused to let go of life. That was enough. He lifted her gently, surprised by how little she weighed. "I have you," he whispered, more a promise than a statement. She gave no reply. The ride back was hard and fast. The sun turned red across the sky, as if the land itself remembered what had happened. He didn't stop until darkness forced him to. That night, a small fire burned against the cold. He cleaned her wounds with skilled hands, wrapped her head, and gave her water when she moved. She never fully woke, but she fought, breathing, moving, refusing to slip away. He stayed awake the whole night, not because he was afraid she'd die, but because leaving her alone felt wrong. Just before morning, as the sky began to get light, her eyes opened, sharp, alert, instantly aware. She tried to move. "You are safe," he said quietly, holding her shoulders. Her hand found the small gun beside her with surprising speed. The barrel lifted, shaking a little, aimed right at his chest. He didn't grab his own weapon. He didn't step back. He simply met her gaze and waited. The gun stayed aimed at his chest for a long moment, maybe two. The desert was quiet again, holding its breath. Her hand trembled, but her eyes didn't. Slowly, carefully, he raised both hands and gently took the gun away with 2 fingers. She let him. That alone told him how close she was to being totally worn out. "You could have left," she said. Her voice was low and rough from thirst and pain. "I could have," he answered, "but I didn't." She studied his face as if looking for something hidden. Whatever she was searching for, she seemed to find it. At last, she lowered the gun and leaned back against the blanket, breathing slow but steady. "My name is Nina," she told him in pieces, between sips of water and long silences. Her people had been moving camp when they were attacked. She fought, she ran, she remembered falling and then waking up to firelight and a stranger who hadn't let her die. The sun climbed higher as she rested. By afternoon she could sit up. By evening she could stand, though the effort made her pale and angry at her own weakness. "I will leave tomorrow," she said simply. "You can't," he replied. "Not yet." Her eyes flashed. "I don't need your permission." "No," he said calmly. "You need time." She hated that answer, but she stayed. The days that followed weren't easy, but they were honest. She healed slowly, stubbornly. He hunted. She watched, learning his ways. He cooked badly. She laughed at that. The sounds were sudden and sharp like breaking ice. At night they shared the fire. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. Silence, he found, could mean many things. With her, it didn't feel empty. One evening, as the sky turned deep orange, she asked, "Why are you here alone?" He shrugged. "Work?" "That's not an answer," she said. He stared into the fire. For a long moment he thought about lying. Then he didn't. "I lost someone," he said. After that, staying alone felt easier. She nodded as if she understood more than he'd said. "You carry sadness like an old friend," she said softly, "but you are still breathing." The words hit him harder than she knew. Days turned into a rhythm. They walked the land together. She showed him plants he'd passed 100 times without seeing. He showed her the safest paths through the valley. Laughter came easier. Trust did too. One morning he packed his gear. "I need to go north," he told her. "Supplies are due. People will be waiting." She stood between him and his horse. "No," she said. He sighed. "Nina." "You saved me," she interrupted. "You stayed when leaving would have been simpler. Now you want to disappear again." "This is my life." She shook her head. "No, this is what you do so you don't have to feel." The truth hurt more than any bullet. "I am not asking you to stay forever," she continued. "I am asking you to stop running." Silence fell between them. That night, a storm rolled in. Thunder cracked the sky open. Rain turned dust into mud. They sat close to the fire, shoulders nearly touching. When the wind howled, she reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. In that moment, he understood something he'd been avoiding since the day he found her in the sand. Saving her hadn't been about being a hero. It had been about seeing himself in her. Two wounded souls refusing to lie down and disappear. At dawn, he made his choice. He stayed. Weeks passed. Her strength returned fully. His did too, in ways he hadn't expected. The heavy weight in his chest eased. The nights grew quieter. Not empty, just still. Eventually, she told him she needed to return to her people. "I will go with you," he said. She smiled, not surprised. "I hoped you would." They traveled together through land that no longer felt unfriendly. When they reached the edge of her territory, she stopped. "You don't belong to the past you were carrying, but neither do you belong nowhere." He understood then that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing to live anyway. When he turned back, it wasn't alone. He carried purpose, connection, hope. Because sometimes the person you save in the desert isn't the one bleeding in the sand. Sometimes it's the man who thought he was already lost.